When you walk into a grocery store, the placement of those items on the shelves, the manufacturers have paid for that spot. So in other words, manufacturers pay for that spot right at eye level. They pay for that spot like at chest high, at waist high. What the manufacturer doesn't want, they don't want their item on the top shelf. They don't want their item on the bottom shelf because they know that item's not going to sell. So there's all this maneuvering in the grocery store to get that prime time spot. And then that also extends to end caps. We want to, it's not a coincidence that you see Coca-Cola on the end cap. Coca-Cola paid for the right to put their item on that end cap to say, hey, and in fact, you'll see Coca-Cola come in and build the display for you because they paid for that. They paid for that end cap. They paid for that presentation, and they want to influence that presentation so that more customers buy their products. This forms a planogram, if you will. And I came from Target. My first real job was Target, and I didn't really work with planograms. But when you work in a company where everything is designated to a spot, you see patterns. You'll go into one aisle and you'll be like arranging an aisle. I used to work in toys, and in the toy aisle, it'd be like, okay, this one box, it goes up on top because it's a certain style. It's a large item. It's a big box. We're going to put it on top. We're going to put it on the bottom. We're going to put smaller items in the middle. We know this is a pattern because I go 2 aisles over to another aisle that has a totally different product, but it has similar sized boxes, and they're arranged in the same way. So the planogram is based off of a particular strategy for the placement of items. Many of these stores that operate inside malls, and it's national brands too. It's not your mom and pop operations. It's national brands that occupy these 5,000 to 7,000 square foot spaces. They don't have planograms. They have what they call schematics. And in other words, they put like items together. But the mistake that these retailers make is they think no one's paying them for this shelf space. No one's paying me to put the items on my shelves. So I'm going to put the items on my shelf wherever I want to. So if I have an item that I can put way up on the top shelf, I'm going to put as many things on the top shelf as I want. If I have an item that needs to go on the bottom shelf, I'm going to put as many things on the bottom shelf as I want. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to merchandise the product for a quadruped animal. I'm going to merchandise the product for a dog so that when a dog walks down the bottom shelf, all the items are laid out in a row right across. So where the dog walking along can say, oh, look at that item. Look at all of that. The dog can't really look up high unless it gets on what? 2 legs. Humans are bipeds. Humans are not quadrupeds. I see all the time when I go into retail stores, their merchandise is arranged for a 4-legged animal, and it can be an animal literally as big as a giraffe because the merchandise is stacked so high that only a giraffe could reach it, or as small as a cat on the bottom shelf. When you place a product on the top shelf, when you place a display product on the top shelf, you have decided that product is not going to sell. When you place a product on the bottom shelf, when you place a display on the bottom shelf and all of the product on the bottom shelf, you've decided that product is not going to sell. One of the extensions of food poisoning theory is another theory called microefficiency theory. Now, microefficiency theory looks at how you merchandise products and changes that merchandising to make the shopping experience more pleasurable, to essentially open up the 30% of the products that you decided weren't going to sell because of your merchandising standards. The illusion of competence of microefficiency theory makes that product shoppable, makes that product noticeable again so that the customer wants to buy it. It also takes away the feeling of being overwhelmed, because it's not just the customer that's overwhelmed. When you walk into a store that's overwhelmed, by its very nature, you're walking into a store where the employees are overwhelmed.